Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we've got some big news regarding the next DLC for Total War Warhammer 3. Yes, Creative Assembly decided to drop the news a little bit early this month. I was expecting it at the end of September, but we're going to do the usual. We're going to listen to it, stop at any parts that is quite important information, discuss that, and there's going to be timestamps there in the description below just in case you want to go for specific topics. But with that being said, let's jump in because there is a lot to talk about. I think their video is like 20 minutes long. I'm going to chop off some bits that we don't need there though.
Hi everyone, I'm Steve from the Total War community team, and I'm once again sitting down with some of the guys from the Warhammer development team to chat a little bit more about what's coming up in the future. Just a quick disclaimer, this video is being recorded before the release of patch 5.2, so even though we'll be talking about those patches and the kind of future of those patches, we won't be addressing any of your feedback or responses to that from now, as we wouldn't have seen that because unfortunately we can't see into the future as much as we wish we could. So with that said, let's jump into some introductions. Rich and Sean, people have met you before, but do you want to give us a quick introduction as to who you are and what you do?
I'm the game director for the Total War Warhammer series. I look after the various DLCs, hotfixes, patches and the like with these fine gentlemen.
And Sean, how about you?
Yeah, I'm the lead designer on the next project coming up now. So I'm focused primarily on keeping the team focused and bringing it together ready for the end of this year.
Awesome. And we also have Mitch with us today, who's heading up the project to bring the kind of smaller updates and refreshes to the game in the interim patches in between the DLCs, like 5.2, which you would have just got your hands on. Mitch, do you want to give us a quick introduction to who you are, what you do, and also maybe your history with the Warhammer series?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Mitch. Some people will remember me. Thinking way back to Beastmen is where I joined the project. On Warhammer with Rich and the team, and I worked on every DLC all the way up to Immortal Empires. Some of the big notes in there were Tomb Kings and Vampire Coast. A couple of the ones that I led, some of my favorites. I then took a small hiatus after Immortal Empires, but now I'm back. And like you said, I'm going to be working on the patches and the updates, and just really having a think how we can bring all of the old content a bit more up to date.
Awesome, thanks Mitch, and welcome back.
Thank you.
So this could be quite important as Mitch obviously worked on Warhammer 2 and a lot of Warhammer 1. Pretty much a lot of the good DLCs that we ended up getting. Quality kind of died off a little bit when it came to Warhammer 3, but then got a lot better. So it's good to see someone who obviously is quite experienced back into the fold. Obviously we know that he's working on the patching systems and so on, but this is really good because patch 5.2 has been very well received. I've been quite keen on it, especially with the cafe changes, and well, pretty much just the extra units for the Greenskins is always nice.
So let's jump into a couple of questions about the next DLC. So in the last video we spoke a bit about the new legendary lords that were coming, gave some little bits of juicy information there. Is there any update on how things are going?
Yeah, things are going really well. We are way into our production pipeline now. So you would have seen from the last video some of the creatures and characters coming to life with some of the animations, and we're also now working on lots of our audio content as well, so how these things are going to sound, how we're developing our designs, which I'm sure Sean will talk a little bit about later, as we push forward in rounding out the development process where we're going to iterate and then do some bug fixing and the like before we get to release. So looking really good.
Sean, how are things going from your end? What are you doing at the moment?
Well, we're actually almost at like a playtesting stage now, so we've got it all together. It's a beautiful masterpiece that is filled with problems. So we will playtest it, we'll iron out those kinks, and we'll fix all the bugs. So yeah, we're just shifting into that phase now, which is for us the most important phase. So we'll be really relying on our QA team to give us lots of feedback, and we'll spend a lot of time playtesting ourselves. But as we shift into iteration, what looks like an amazing idea right now, we'll play it and go, oh, actually maybe we could shift it this way or that way, and that's where like the real magic comes together, and that's what we've learned over the years, that this is like the most crucial stage to get like the best product. So we are there now, and we are not wasting any time with what we have.
Alright, this is quite important. Remember that this video that they posted was recorded before the launch of 5.2, and it's been a fair amount of time since then too, and they were just hitting the playtesting stage, which makes me question how long does it take to make a DLC. And like, this is not a bad thing, it's more getting into the mind of development. They're doing sound design stuff too, so they're obviously working on that. A little bit of a fun note for you guys that sometimes when we get DLC's early access, creator stuff, sometimes the voices aren't even implemented in our build. So they've got like separate builds. There's like loads of builds as far as I'm aware. But yeah, okay, so playtesting now. We're expecting this DLC coming out, November, December? That's pretty much what most people were expecting. So at this point, they should be fairly well in.
So a word that you guys both mentioned there is iteration. And for those who don't know what that is, what is that, and what is that stage when you're in game development?
So we have like a few key stages for us. So we have the pre-production stage, which is where we decide what we're making. We've figured out who the characters are, what's the goal, what's the pillars to lean towards. After pre-production, we know what we're making. We shift into production where we start producing it. We make it. And during that stage, we just kind of have like the first draft. So once it all comes together, we then play test that and we go, okay, so what was good, what was bad, maybe it's like completely the wrong direction. We think we've missed the mark. As we hit into iteration, that's where we take a stop, we address it. We think, okay, we need to turn left here or go right there. And then we have a good few weeks of doing that, and then at the end of that, we then shift towards bug fixing so that we can polish the product ready for release.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely where we sprinkled a little bit of pixie dust and magic into it, and just really polish it out.
Okay, so this is stuff where, things can change as they're developing a DLC. It's something that I do find quite curious, especially I had an interview once with Rich Aldridge, and he said it was like, oh yeah, the Vampire Coast DLC was supposed to be very, very different in its original inception. As far as I tried to prod, I didn't get any information. But yeah, so it looks like a lot of stuff could change, which is why they're not really showing us that much, barring the stuff that they know they want. Legendary characters, legendary heroes, units, and so on. Those are locked in, but sometimes mechanics could change. Some other units could change. So we do get a few reveals in this video. They kind of gave us a little bit of a heads up, but not everything. So the stuff I'm assuming is being showed is locked in.
So let's look at these new legendary lords. Let's look at Gorbad for the first one. Is there any extra stuff based, what you told us before? Any new stuff that you can talk about today regarding his playstyle mechanics? Anything about him?
Yeah, I can go a little bit more detail. So last time we talked about how he was, this tactician that brings all flavors of the Orcs and Goblins roster together. And we've dug into that a bit further, and we've come up with a name in progress, but apt de plan, which is a feature around Gorbad experimenting with what different units in the roster can he pull together, and if those form a plan in his head, he can then create a unique strategy around them. So it might be, send out some goblins in front of the archers and they can pick up the arrows, and it's like, well, now you've got a way to regenerate your ammunition during the battle because he's got arrow catchers, go in and get it. Or maybe it's a more campaign-focused thing of like, what if I bring loads of wolf riders? Then I can do better raiding. So it's all ideas around experiment with your army, what units you bring, and that can have both campaign and battle and interactions to make him quite different.
First thing, the Gorbad art, which is essentially just like very early concept stage, it's great because it just basically looks like the miniature, which is awesome. The stuff that they're talking about, obviously it's not like concrete fully, but it does sound pretty cool. I like the idea of a well-rounded greenskin army with loads of different ways of running armies and stuff like that. Hopefully, and this is my big hope here, it's not just for Gorbad, but any other armies that you're running around, because at the end of the day, it would be kind of cool to have like an army focused on loads of archers supporting an army focused on a lot of cavalry, and so on and so forth. But mixing and matching will also sound pretty cool too. Yeah, I mean, this sounds good. I'm keen. I'm very, very keen. I'm really curious how this is going to be in the overview. I mean, I'm imagining it's going to be kind of very similar in a sense in terms of like inspiration from mixing and matching items, like kind of like Grom does, but obviously very, very different. You know what I'm saying? Like the basic idea of it. I could be wrong, but it just sounds pretty interesting overall. And yeah, arrow catchers, stuff like that, regeneration for ammunition is very, very good, especially if you're able to buff up the archers a little bit more and make them a little bit more killier.
Different.
So you've mentioned units. Are there any that you can tell us about today?
Yeah, I think the unit I most want to talk about is the characters, the Savage Orc Shaman.
Fuck yes! Oh my god, I love Savage Orcs. I mean, it's not a joke. I absolutely adore Savage Orcs. It's a great paint scheme too. But yeah, okay, Savage Orc Shamans are coming in. I'm assuming I mean, I'm just going to put a very educated guess. This might mean we might get big stabbers. I hope so, but more Savage Orcs is just wonderful.
So to go back to how we're always looking at the game and trying to find where it makes sense, for us we thought we have Wurrzag in game right now. We've got lots of Savage Orc tribes in game, but none of them are being actually led by Savage Orcs, which they should be. So if we bring in the Savage Orc Shaman, we can right that wrong, and we can bring in a new bit of gameplay, but also refresh some old experiences and make it feel a bit more authentic to the Warhammer world. It's weird having a Savage Orc tribe led by an orc.
Yeah.
Now it's a Savage Orc, so yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, we want to give you that flavour.
Yeah.
So again, it's no secret that I love Savage Orcs. They're my favorite type of greenskin. I totally agree with everything that's being said here, because immersion is really, really important. I don't know if it's that big for you guys, but for me it is. So yeah, Savage Orc Shaman, if they're able to mount up on boars and wyverns, that'll be cool. I'd love to see just the remaining stuff. Keep in mind that the greenskins themselves are missing a lot of different Lord and Hero options, which are just basically variants. But again, immersion is a really important thing when it comes to playing a faction that diverse. I'm super happy about this. Really, really keen.
We had that in the past with Shadows of Change and didn't quite get that right there with Mother Stankia. So yeah, absolutely want to make sure that you can role play out the armies that you want to build. And yeah, Sean was like dead set on getting this character in for you.
Yeah, when we brought in the Savage Orc, it did make us take another look at Wurrzag. They're like, well, if we're giving him another character, maybe we should take a look at what he's up to. So we've actually moved him as well. So we've moved him from the Badlands down to the Southland jungles to pay homage to his origin in his 8th edition lore. And we're working like a little nod to his connection with Gork and Mork and the Savage Orc tribe. So yeah, a new fresh experience there, something we're looking to do in other places as well.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is great for a number of reasons. One, a new start position is always great, and to be honest, it would just be nice to get Wurrzag in a different location. It's a lore-friendly start too. This is going to be really good for Skarbrand, by the way, because Skarbrand suffers very heavily against Wurrzag, because obviously Savage Orcs are very good at killing off demons. So yeah, super happy there. It does seem like they're doing a little bit more to Wurrzag, but just kind of just talking about it, it's the whole hint to Gork and Mork. So if he gets something unique for him, I will be ecstatic. At the end of the day, when we look towards Thrones of Decay, when they started doing stuff for the Empire, it was fixing up a bunch of issues for characters which could do with a little bit of a rework here and there. So I wouldn't call it confirmation, but I sure hope they do something just to give him something a little bit fun. Visions from Gork and Mork, go here, ally with this, attack that. Something like that would just be kind of fun. But yeah, already really happy. I'm biased towards the Savage Orcs, I've said this already, but yeah, this is just really fun for me.
So we want to see your best Wurrzag dance.
The time will come, I'm sure. I'm sure if there's enough demand for it.
Should we start a petition to make Steve dance like Wurrzag? I think we could.
So what about Golgfag? What's coming down that line with the Ogre Kingdoms? Is there more stuff that you can tell us about now?
Yeah, I can tell you some more stuff about that. You're pulling it all out of me today.
I'm very heavily aiming at you today, Sean.
I'm in the crosshairs.
Yes, because you're heading this all up. You've got all the juicy details.
Yeah, I'll make sure I do a good job. So Golgfag, I mentioned earlier, he is the mercenary guy. So we have to make him a mercenary, right? Like, we have to create the first proper mercenary faction in Warhammer 3. So we've got a brand new feature set now where you can take on Golgfag's contracts and you actually work for another faction. So if I create a scenario here, we obviously had to deliver a mercenary experience. So for the first time in Warhammer 3, we're trying to create a faction that plays like a mercenary. So you will work for other factions. So in his new feature, Golgfag's contracts, you can, let's say Carl Franz is having some trouble with Vlad, and he offers you a job. You can take on all his wars and go, okay, I'll work for you, Carl. You beat up Vlad and maybe Drychus causing trouble, or Kemmler as well. If you do enough good job for him, beat up his enemies, maybe gift some of the settlements to him, you can fulfill your contract, and Carl will give you a nice big juicy payday at the end of that. So
Okay, this sounds really, really cool. So what people wanted from Golgfag Maneater was literally just be a mercenary, and it looks like Creative Assembly are listening about this. I'm assuming once you sign up a contract, you get a bar that you need to fill up, and that's when you get the final thing. So attacking enemies, raiding them, destroying their cities, gifting cities back to France, and so on, would get that bar filled up. That's my kind of assumption from what's being said here. And if that's the case, yeah, I mean, that's perfect. That's literally what people wanted. You're going to be working with other factions, getting into their wars, and getting a big payday at the end of it. That's great. I can't see any fault here. Actually, I can't see any fault.
Yeah, and we've even tried to keep it like, you're a neutral party, you're just a mercenary. So a lot of the diplomacy that comes with beating up Vlad, well, actually gets passed on to Karl. Like, he's the one that hired you. It's not Golgfag's fault that he's doing a good job. So at the end of that contract, maybe Vlad says, could you work for me instead and take on Karl next? So we've created this new experience where he does kind of roam the world, taking on the jobs and beating up anyone he fancies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a throwback to very early mercenary lore in Warhammer Fantasy, where you'd be doing the damage to, say, for example, Vlad here. We'll use that as an example. And Vlad will turn around and go, hey, we'll pay you more type of situation. This is great. This is awesome. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that means that you're going to be as neutral as possible. I do wonder if you're going to be able to, like, empire build a little bit, or you're just going to be running with camps. I wouldn't mind running around with camps, but I would like to have a few settlements. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we won't probably see anything like this until they get closer to when they announce or at the announce. But it's sounding good. It's sounding very good. It's sounding, for a Maneater ogre specifically, it's sounding very, very good.
The Yettis are like a monstrous infantry unit for the ogre roster. They are like quite ice imbued and come from the.
It's really weird seeing old school artwork that you'd find in your army books and so on screen. I mean, I do it all the time when I do my videos and so on, but coming from an official point of view, which obviously Games Workshop gives them permission for, but it throws me back. Reminds me, I need to paint up a few more Yetis, actually.
The deep recesses of the mountains in the Ogre Kingdoms, and to give them a bit of a difference from Gorges, who are quite, aggressive, charging in. The Yetis actually come with like a passive debuff, an Aura of Frost, I think is our working title there. So you want to mix them into your roster in places to debuff the enemy so that your Ogre Bulls can really hit them hard on the charge.
Alright, so the Aura of Frost is coming back from the tabletop. It's going to be very similar, by the way, to that of the Thunder Tusk, because both of them had very similar functionality on the tabletop, but I'm imagining reduction of maybe some armor or melee defense, which would be very good, as explained. It's going to be good against when you're using your Ogre Bulls, so you've got them debuffing and then the Bulls charging in. Yeah, man, I mean, Yetis are super cool. I know a lot of people loved them back in the days of the tabletop because they were actually that good. And let's be very honest here, there's not that much that they could actually do for the Ogre Kingdoms. A lot wasn't missing. I did kind of speculate that this was going to happen because, like, the army book is almost fully done.
Are they really big or just big?
Just big.
Just big, okay. Just wondering.
Yeah, big, furry.
That's what she said. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah.
As a Yeti should be.
Yeah.
Cool. Are they soft and fluffy?
I wouldn't pet them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at Khorne. Skulltaker.
Yes.
What new info can you give us?
Well, I think last time I told you that he's a champion hunter. That's his probably gameplay role there. So again, we've dialed into that on the campaign side as well. With Skulltaker, he's all about hunting down champions, taking their skulls. And for us, we are trying to capture that with him. When he defeats characters in campaign, he will claim a portion of their strength, some of their champion essence, which he can then use to imbue his Cloak of Skulls. And the whole idea of the feature is seek out, powerful characters, defeat them, claim some of their strength, and empower yourself even further, so that you can become the ultimate Khorne champion and the ultimate champion of the Warhammer world.
So I wonder if this is going to be a process of static enemy targets, maybe a dynamic system of quest battles, or if you're going to be just able to teleport to different locations, because in the lore when it comes to the Skulltaker, he appears outside castles, he appears outside settlements or whatever to challenge anyone who might have the balls to do so. So I'd like to see if it's only focused on legendary lords, or if it's also focused on generic lords also, which would be pretty cool. I'd prefer the latter, to be honest.
So it's literally a process of the more people you kill, the stronger you are.
Yeah, and if anyone starts to look pretty tough, well, you just kill them, right? And then you take their strength, and now you're even
then you're
tougher.
tougher.
Exactly.
And it's just exponential until you're champion of everything.
Yeah, until he's stood at the top of the peak alone.
Yeah, he's got skulls everywhere. I was looking at the art the other day, what our character artists have done, and even his sword, on the blade, there are skulls etched all the way up there. The guy is fully stocked.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I know some people might not like his design, but I see that. I think of the old miniatures. I think of the new version too, because it's actually quite a faithful redesign. And yeah, I mean, Skulltaker has always been kind of iconic when it comes to Warhammer, mostly on Warhammer Fantasy. I don't know if he's doing anything in the other settings, to be honest, but yeah, he's such a great character, such a great character.
Units. Are there any new units or anything like that you can talk about for Khorne for this DLC?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what we've got coming for them. And I guess touching back on the other questions that you asked about how we produce and package up the content, Khorne's got something slightly different. Not too different, but slightly different in that we've been looking back in all the books and the materials that were sent by Games Workshop. And what we're trying to do, obviously, is create parity across all three different strands of the DLC. Where you've got your Legendary Lord and Legendary Hero and so on. But with Khorne, when we came to look at what other options were available for some of the generic characters, they didn't quite have as much stuff on offer now as maybe what some of the other factions do, as we've been exhausting it through the various different DLCs and products. So Khorne's already got, I think, three kind of heroes in already, like the cultists and the like. So there was nothing really more to be added there. We do have a new generic lord though coming in, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the future.
Okay, so the design philosophy, they're trying to keep as close to the lore as possible. There's not much that they can do. A new generic lord option sounds weird, right? Because we have a lord option, right? We've got two, right? We've got the Bloodletter, and then we've got the Chaos Warrior Lord. I wonder what they're going to get. I wonder what they're going to do. Maybe a different type of Chaos Warrior Lord, or maybe they end up doing a shaman. I doubt they do a shaman, because then we'd probably have one as a hero too, and they've said no hero here. Huh. Very, very curious. Like, I'm actually really, really curious here.
But to fill that gap, what we're doing with Khorne is going to give you two legendary heroes rather than just the one that you've seen in past experiences. So Greenskins and Ogres, don't worry, they still fit the same formula as Thrones Decay, but Khorne, you're going to get two legendary heroes, and they've got two pretty cool ones, or I think they are. So first up, we've got Scyla Anfingrimm, which I think is one that you've all been talking about and expecting to see. We do have that brute of a Chaos Spawn making his appearance with his massive, ape-like stature and fists. He was a past Norscan chieftain, wasn't he, Sean?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so he's got all this pent-up rage and fury. He just wants to unleash it all.
All right, so the first one, everyone kind of expected. I think everyone and their mother was expecting Scyla and Anfingrimm, because Return to Monkey. I am really, really curious to see what he does in terms of combat, what types of special abilities he might have, because he's supposed to be he's a Chaos Spawn, right? He's not supposed to be, he is a Chaos Spawn, just a little bit smarter than all the others, because he is more like a Blessed Spawn. Ah, my god, he's got such a great model. I've recently just been looking at his old one. I've got it right in front of me, actually. So, perfect choice for Khorne. The second one...
And then the other character, which maybe you're not expecting, but we're equally excited about doing, is Skarr Bloodwrath. Now, Skarr Bloodwrath is not an 8th edition character per se. He comes from the end times. So it made sense when we looked at Khorne how we can get the best and most exciting characters and units into the pack, and to have him. And it will make sense when we disclose some more of the content coming as well, why we chose him. But I think both of those...
So there's a few things that we need to talk about over here. Skarr Bloodwrath is an End Times character. This has been publicly stated by Creative Assembly before that it was a separate IP, so it looks like they've kind of come into an agreement with Games Workshop. That does mean, once again, that End Time stuff is possible. I've been saying this for fucking years now. Here we go, right? I'm not gonna celebrate too much because I'm tired. It's the day before National Day. I've been busy. But there's a few things here. One, other than the End Time stuff, he's basically confirmed that we're going to get Skull Reapers or Wrathmongers, because he's like, oh yeah, it makes sense with the other content that's coming in. This also is kind of big hype because they're cool characters. They're they're not characters. They're essentially just the style of kind of like aspiring champions for the Chaos Warriors, but Khorne monogod touched, which is very, very cool. It does kind of bring a dampener here because, well, he shouldn't be a legendary hero, he should be a lord, in my opinion. It's something that I've already voiced to Creative Assembly after I've done like my reaction stuff here. I've been like recording and then going back to CA, going feedback here, feedback there, blah blah blah, right? I personally think that Skarr Bloodwrath should have been another legendary lord. Maybe in the similar vein to Isabella, not to clutter the map so much. So if you're playing as him, he shows up. If you're not, then he's a legendary hero for everyone else. It's just because the Skarramore, that's his tribe, right, is in the Northern Chaos Wastes, and they're known to be like a very powerful tribe that kind of keep to themselves and then just do a lot of damage. Even like other chaotic tribes in the north stay well enough away from them. I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm super excited to see Skarr Bloodwrath. He's got a fantastic model on the tabletop and very, very cool design from what we've been able to see from CA here in terms of their rendition. But I'm hoping that Creative Assembly are considering that for the future. You never know. Nothing's set in stone. Remember, they've said it themselves in the past. Nothing's really set in stone until it's like locked in terms of like devlock and release.
Very brutal, very vicious. Yeah, very much strong followers of Khorne. So they'll be fun to play around with.
You mentioned a lot about kind of reference materials and things like that you've got, like the books and stuff from Games Workshop. So what do you use as your reference point?
Well, Mitch is really good, one for digging through and turning over every stone and an idea.
No, absolutely, yeah. I think the start of every project is, for me and I'm sure many others, just taking the army book of whatever you're working on and just reading through it. And then you pull out from the army books, loads of notes related to, the characters, the units, and especially the campaign as well. You're always kind of looking for something unique, something interesting that you can pull out from the army book that you can then translate into gameplay. Obviously, it's a little bit more directly translatable with the battle stuff, but in campaign, you're always looking for something just a little bit, unique, something that you can really, and it can be like something really small sometimes, that you can just kind of latch onto. And turn it maybe into something quite interesting for a feature or something like that. You're always reading through the army books, and there's also lots of other books as well and other magazines and various source material that you'll just read throughout the entire project to try and just really immerse yourself in whatever it is you're working on at the time.
So the really interesting thing here is like, there's other source material and stuff. My understanding was they were only allowed for the 8th edition, and sometimes they're allowed to jump into other stuff. We've seen that too. They've said that publicly, right? It's 8th edition and then little bits here and there. I want to know how far and where they can go for. We've seen a lot of 6th edition stuff lately, which is really, really cool. Obviously, Thrones of Decay was really jumping into a supplement, and then obviously a little bit of the Storm of Chaos. Love to see that more. Love to see them basically jump in as much as possible. There is 40 years worth of lore. I don't know, man. It'd just be cool to see more and more deep dives, right?
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Mitch. Well, we've spoken quite a lot about the DLC now, and looking forward to sharing more info in the near future. Let's have a chat with you now, Mitch, and talk about what you've been doing with the smaller updates and the kind of interim patches and things like that, like 5.2 that we've just seen released. What's your approach to this? So how do you identify what you're going to work on or what you want to add or what you want to refresh and freshen up?
Yeah, so I think as players know, there is a lot that we want to freshen up in the game, and we do quite a bit of that in the DLCs. But I think what we want to start doing more of is taking the opportunity to do that with the patches. So that's kind of the initiative we're starting now to kind of make our patches a bit bigger, a bit fuller. And in terms of what goes into them, we really want to be player-led. 5.2 obviously came with a couple of things. It came with some new things, and it came with some fixes. And that's something I think we want to keep going forward. So we always want to try and add something new in the patches, something that you can say, hey, I'm going to come back and I'm going to try that new thing out. And you don't then necessarily have to wait for a DLC to have like a new experience. So that's always something I think we're going to try and aim for. And then on the point of tackling, fixing up some old content. There's a lot of it. Obviously, we've got a massive amount of content now. So, we are going to be listening to players a lot. We've got a great team here that takes all of the feedback from the community and then feeds it to the devs like us. We'll kind of filter through that. We won't necessarily always have the capability to do exactly what people are asking for. So, for example, if people want us to do things like add new lords in these updates, that's probably not going to be something we're going to be able to do, and we'll focus maybe a little bit more on things like campaign features, fixing up old features, doing some reworks, maybe smaller reworks. Maybe for some of the patches, we'll do bigger reworks, maybe like a race rework if we can. There's going to be quite a bit of variance in these patches in terms of both the scope of them, how big they are, and the kind of content we do in them. And yeah, again, we're going to be player-led. Just because we're not going to do in these updates new lords and characters, that doesn't mean that for old content, there aren't going to be any new lords or characters.
So that was a big chunk because I didn't want to interrupt the flow that Mitch was going on to. But this is quite interesting because this came out before patch 5.2. Well, this was recorded before patch 5.2. That does mean that Creative Assembly were looking at that patch as a turning factor for the community, and they were feeling very, very confident, as they should have been, considering that, yes, the patch was very, very well received. I think it's been a massive breath of fresh air. We finally gotten this custodian team, essentially, something that the whole community has been asking for a very long time, as Warhammer 3 was really struggling to meet expectations that a lot of players were having, and myself included and everyone else, let's be very honest there. So if the stats in Creative Assembly's point of view is meeting the expectation they wanted, we're going to be seeing this more often. They said no characters, so no legendary lords, no legendary heroes, stuff like that. That's something that I saw some people hoping for, but at the end of the day, that requires a lot more work than adding in new units here and there. New units is always great. Yes, they might not have been the most exciting ones for 5.2, but it does fill out the roster for a faction. So if we can see that happening more and more, there are Chaos Warrior variants, for example, which I would love. There are lots more greenskins. There are loads more greenskins that are still missing. Some stuff here and there for the Empire. Just unit variants that wouldn't really fit in a DLC slot because, yeah, they don't require that much work. But it would be nice to see, to just flesh out the game more, to show the actual sheer scope and scale of Warhammer Fantasy. They also said that there's a possibility for race reworks during this, and I would love to see some sort of like thing for Bretonnia, or just something that might not get DLC in the future, or just faction reworks, right? We did get some nice changes here and there for the dwarves in 5.2, which I think a lot of people are quite happy with. The big quality of life change for Cafe, so if we start seeing more stuff like that, and if it could get even bigger, like a proper rework for a legendary lord, well, I think everyone is going to be pretty happy with that. Overall, if this is the commitment that they're going to go for, the game is going to be in a much better spot. So yeah, I'm hoping that they saw the numbers that they wanted to see for patch 5.2, and yeah, let's hope for the best, guys. Let's really hope for the best. I love this game. I want to see it get as much attention as possible, and I guess it's going to be there, right? If it continues this way.
What would be really awesome is to start getting more feedback from players. What is it do they want to see? What content do they want us to go back and fix and update? And if they have even kind of, like I said, we want to do new stuff. So if they've got idea for, new little features that they want to see in the game, it can be, quality of life features, or it can be something a little bit more mechanical like the deeps, then we can look to do that. So at the moment, I will mention a couple of things that are on our list. But the big caveat obviously is that plans might change. So what we're thinking of doing at some point will be a Bretonnia rework. I think we have looked at them in the past, but they've still got quite a few things that I think we want to fix and update with them. Most notably, Rich always talks about this quite a lot, is the Green Knight. Mm-hmm. He's on our list for sure, along with some other feature fixes for Bretonnia. So they'll be coming, I think, at some point.
A Bretonnia rework would be absolutely fantastic, especially as we've been seeing so much of Bretonnia because of the new hype revolving around Warhammer the Old World. I don't know if this could be possible, but Knights on Foot would be absolutely phenomenal. A proper crusade mechanic would be great for the Bretonnians, something that is really embedded into their lore. It would be lovely to see that happen, but it's nice to hear that Bretonnia hasn't been forgotten about, and they will get something in the future, or at least right now there is plans to do something for them in the future. This makes me incredibly happy. This makes me really, really happy to hear. In one way, shape, or form, I wouldn't really mind a DLC for Bretonnia. I know that would be something a lot of people are against, but an actual big polish, some new characters, some new legendary lords, legendary heroes would be great. The Green Knight is going to get fixed up, hopefully at some point, and be turned into a legendary hero. At least I hope so. But, just more would be great.
Also Kislev, I'll mention them. We've seen a lot of feedback. People want us to take a look at Kislev. and kind of, update them a little bit. And then we've also got some other smaller plans. So I think we've got a big rebalance of the ancillary system and a bunch of new ancillaries that we're looking to do in the near future.
Kislev getting a rework is very desperately needed too. They're a base game faction for Warhammer 3, and they've fallen behind everyone else, which is kind of ridiculous. But Katerin and Konstantin, they have their unique mechanic, but it's basically just taken from Troy. Boris doesn't really have anything too unique about him. Ostankia's in a pretty good spot now that we actually have some proper stuff in Shadows of Change, but it would be nice to see that. It's also very nice to hear that they're going to do something with ancillaries, because at the end of the day, everyone really does like them, but there's not a lot of variety, so it would be good to see some more.
The Chaos Invasion, that's also something that we've seen a lot of requests for, which is definitely on our list to kind of bring back in some form. Obviously, it's a little bit different now how we can kind of implement it in Warhammer 3 because all the big bad guys are already on the map. But I think there's some ideas we've got there. So yeah, that's a couple of things just to name, just to give you a little taste. But yeah, like I said, we'll be waiting for feedback. And we really do want to be player-led, so it will, plans might change depending on what it is people want.
This man comes back to Total War Warhammer and the game starts getting better and better. It's just an educated observation, but, he left right after Immortal Empires DLC after that. It wasn't really good, so it's good to see him back. Oh god, it really is. Let's hope this continues. The Chaos Invasion coming back would be awesome. I don't like an end game scenario like they've got right now, but a proper Chaos Invasion, something thematic, which just makes a lot of sense, would be awesome. Hell, to have 2 levels of it. Chaos Undivided, and then just everyone.
As Mitch said, we're gonna try and inject variety of content into these updates. Hopefully you saw recently 5.2, we added a couple of Orc and Goblin units. There's other ideas around weapon variants, stuff like that, but that's the sort of thing that we're aiming for at the moment. Whereas, characters like Egrimm, I know people are after him, he'd be better suited to a DLC in the future. So, yeah, please don't expect those in the minor updates.
Hey, Creative Assembly acknowledge Egrimm van Horstmann. Something very interesting there is, if you notice, he's trying to hold back the smiles. So it's clear that they do have some big Chaos DLC planned. A lot of us have been speculating that an End Times DLC, and it might happen. It might actually happen. We're getting End Times characters in now, and yeah, who knows what happens in the future. My absolute hope, and you have no idea, I'm waving my arms in the air and everything. At Games Workshop, we'll work with Creative Assembly, and we'll get the missing mono-god characters that we didn't get for the End Times for Slaanesh and for Tzeentch, units, actual aspiring champion style units. Nurgle got the Blight Kings, Wrathmongers for Khorne and Skull Reapers for Khorne, so it would be really cool to see something like that for Slaanesh and for Tzeentch and fill out the roster and be done with it, Okay, so the remaining stuff there is just them asking for feedback. I'll leave it at the end, so it's always good for you guys to know. End of the day, fairly happy about this. The Ogre stuff, very, very cool. Yhetti's expected, Funtus we already knew, and Golgfag's mechanic sounds very, very cool. Gorbad and the rest of the Greenskin stuff sounds pretty interesting. I love the idea that Wurrzag's going to get a new start position. My biggest question is what's going to happen with Khorne, because there's a few things that just don't make sense. Obviously, Skarr Bloodwrath being a legendary hero is very odd to me. I feel like he should have been a legendary lord. I don't know, man. It just sounds odd to me. Especially if this DLC ends up being Wrathmongers for units, and I am starting to think we might see the Skull Reapers as a Lord option. I don't know why, but my brain is starting to tick there. And if that's the case, then who better than... Why would a Skull Reaper be leading Skarr Bloodwrath, right? This is just a fear that I have. This is just a fear that I do have. But the communication has been good. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's been showcased here. I'm happy. Hopefully it doesn't take too long for the DLC to come out. The fact that Mitch seems to be very passionate about these patches is also a good thing, because the more of these patches, the better that the state of the game is going to be. Right now, when we look at it, it's averaging around, 23,000 players and so on, which is very, very good for a drought. Yes, we are in a drought right now, but the player base is still very, very high. So here's hoping more good times to come, and yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I do apologize, I'm a bit slow getting to your comments and so on, because it is National Day today. I'm actually out celebrating with my friends and family as my homeland is having its big day of the year, essentially. So I will get back to that. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon. By the time that you see this, I'm probably a few pints in and singing very badly in karaoke, I think. See you soon.
So this feedback that you're acting on from the community, whereabouts are you kind of compiling that from? Which channels that we have are you using for that?
Yeah, so we've got a fantastic player experience team here. Like I said, they kind of give us devs like really great feedback directly from players. So you can go on our official forums, our official Discord, and to be honest, most other social media, we'll find it eventually. And yeah, it's maybe not always obvious, but I can promise you we do get all of the feedback from players, and it is massively helpful in shaping, not only I guess what I do in the updates, but just everything we do in general. So go there, leave all your feedback. It'll reach us, and then we can act on it.
Awesome. Yeah, feedback.
We do a lot of reading.
I bet.
And I wanted to stress, if there was a faction maybe you were hoping Mitch might have mentioned but didn't, don't worry. We've got a bunch of other, plans and DLCs and things still to do. So we've got ideas around some of those other factions as well. They're very much on our radar. Yeah,
it's a good point that I guess it might not always be obvious kind of how we make the decisions we do in terms of what we do. So obviously we know better than players what our plans are. So we might know, for example, what we might do in future. And that then might mean we do something a little bit different for an update, because we know in future this other piece of content people are going to want us to fix, or we've already got that on our in our plans. Trust that, I guess, even if you're kind of giving feedback and not seeing it directly action straight away, it is reaching us, and it's being seen. It's being seen. It's in the plan somewhere probably.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. So thanks to Rich, Mitch, and Sean for joining me again for this today. It's been a lot of fun. Been good chatting with you again. Do let us know your feedback on this format. We want to keep improving it for you. And don't forget to give us your ideas and suggestions for things you'd like to see reworks on from Mitch and the team. We'll make sure that feedback gets through to the right people. You can do that on the CA community forums or the Discord server, or of course you can just get us on our Total War social media channels. We hope you're having fun with 5.2, and we're looking forward to giving you more information about patch 5.3 and the next DLC in the near future. So until that time rolls around, we'll say goodbye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. So thank you to Rich, Sean and Mitch for joining me for this. It's been a lot of fun. Mostly.
You're your own worst enemy.
I know, but I can't help myself.
Just hook you.
Yeah, right. Oh dear. Stop laughing. I'm going to do it on this tape.